I just hope they don't make it political. It seems like a common sentiment people have for shows, movies, and other forms of media these days. In a lot of cases, I can understand where they're coming from, but The Boys isn't one of those cases. Right from season 1, the political undertones of the show are there, and it's a big reason why the show's been praised by critics and audiences alike. But something changed in season 4, and it's led to arguably the most divisive season we've witnessed so far. You have one side saying that the show went woke,
Presented my research to those satisfied They patted me on the head, said I was adorable, and laughed at me.
while the other side is claiming that Republicans are mad because now they learned that the show's making fun of them.
It's legitimate. The woman's body has a way to reject that pregnancy. A nationwide ban on abortion is just good policy.
So who's right? Well, both are. Look, before I get ahead of myself, let's make a couple things clear. First, I don't think the show needs to be apolitical in order to be good. There's plenty of ways to tackle some of these complex topics with nuance and great storytelling, and The Boys was really good at this in its earlier seasons. But here's the most important point that I want to stress. I think it's kind of silly to say that a show has become too political just because you don't agree with the politics being discussed. More on this later though. As I was saying, the show has never really stayed away from politics, even from as early as season 1. I mean, just look at how the show was set up. We have Vought International, the corporation that views superheroes as assets to own, initially led by characters like Madeline Stillwell, who preyed upon their most valuable asset by taking advantage of his insecurities and manipulating him into doing what the company wanted. We get a really good look at how these seemingly larger than life figures were having their strings pulled from behind the curtains. In the world of The Boys, Vought will do whatever it takes to improve their bottom line, including covering up A-Train's doping scandal and the whole ordeal between Starlight and the Deep, all of which mirrors what we see in our lives, with Hollywood for example. The unfortunate end of Huey's girlfriend and the cover-up surrounding her demise is what leads Huey on this journey to take down Vought and the Supes. Through several interwoven storylines, we're shown how Vought weighs the value of a human life versus their brand image and their profits. The key word here is shown. Now sure, in season 2 we saw the addition of Stormfront and her dark past, but the show still did a really good job of remaining witty and satirical about it. Despite her history, her true intentions were shown very subtly to begin with. Now sure, there's scenes later on where she's a bit more explicit with her verbiage, like in this rally where she talks about super terrorists jumping over their borders, but she's established as a racist character. It's not like there's plenty of people in agreement with her either. This works really well because she tries to get Homelander on board with her messaging, but he doesn't bite. At this point, the show could have had him follow her ideology, but the way he's written is still faithful to his character.
We are in a war for the culture. The other races are grinding us down and taking what is rightfully ours, but we can fight back. With an army of supermen millions strong. Because that is Vought's true destiny. And you will be the man who will lead us.
He only cares about himself, and despite being the most powerful Supe alive, he also gets manipulated to serve her needs, something that's familiar to his character. But now for season 4, which, my goodness, really went off the rails. The political themes in this season are so one-dimensional, and it feels like the show preaches more than it shows. And before I go on, I know some of you will say that it's satire or that it's supposed to be a joke, but there's a difference between satire and just being cringy. If every season of The Boys was like this season, then I wouldn't be making this video. But the other seasons did a much better job of being witty and satirical, all while getting the political messaging across. Something as small as the words people use is enough to ruin the immersion and remove us from the world of The Boys. Like for example, I don't think I'd ever would have expected to hear Homelander use the word libtard.
Well, that's why you and me are going to prove to them that even with a soft-on-crime fucking libtard for a president.
There's also the Twitch slur that gets thrown around a few times unironically.
How's that for uppity, cracker?
Okay, which is even weirder when you factor in the world's smartest human is the one saying it. Like, what is that supposed to tell us? That the world's smartest human thinks it's not a racial slur? Or that the smartest person in the world is racist? The addition of Firecracker also adds a bunch of culture war nonsense which immediately removes the sense of immersion because you can tell the online personalities that she's loosely based off of. She's really as surface level as it gets. Her background basically amounts to being some hick who hates Starlight and is now a conservative media personality. And there's nothing that demonstrates this better than this random abortion storyline between her and Starlight. For those of you who don't know, during Firecracker's livestream, she publicly reveals that Starlight had an abortion.
So you want to tell me that those teens over there, that they're safe with her, with that baby killer?
This in turn leads to Starlight lashing out and attacking Firecracker. Later on in the show, we see how different characters view her for making this decision, including her own mother. But that's the extent of the story. It doesn't really get much deeper than this, and this thread kind of gets introduced just to fizzle out soon after. It just feels like they wanted to show how abortions carry a negative connotation in society, which I can even agree with that. But the whole segment just seems so forced and out of nowhere. Homelander himself is a very well written and complex character, but there's times when it seems like he's a loose parody of Donald Trump, which, I don't know, to me is just so played out at this point. And it gets even worse than that. I already mentioned Homelander using words like woke and libtard, but the Seven staging an insurrection is a key event happening later in this season. And what do you know? They're gonna do it on January 6th. The point I'm trying to make here is that these are all topics you can explore in the show, but they rely on a lot of these cheap gimmicks. Rather than trusting the audience to connect the dots and draw their own conclusions, they need to use buzzwords so people go,
oh my god, just like in real life.
Even though I can agree with a lot of the show's messaging, this is just lazy writing. I don't think politics has to ruin shows, but in today's political climate, when it's handled poorly, it becomes much easier for it to ruin immersion. To highlight a good example of this, a movie with heavy political themes, there's a reason why a movie like Parasite is able to unanimously receive praise despite being a critique on capitalism and class struggle. That's because it doesn't tell us capitalism bad. Through careful storytelling and imagery, it shows us the differences between two families from different walks of life. It doesn't rely on cheap gimmicks to get a message across. And in case you think I'm making a video about something that doesn't exist, even the showrunners released a statement amidst the backlash, and it confirms everything I've talked about so far. I clearly have a perspective, and I'm not shy about putting that perspective in the show. Anyone who wants to call the show woke or whatever, that's okay. Go watch something else. But I'm certainly not going to pull any punches or apologize for what we're doing. Some people who watch it think Homelander is the hero. What do you say to that? The show's many things. Subtle isn't one of them. So if that's the message you're getting from it, I just throw up my hands. Okay, who's saying that Homelander's the hero? I know a lot of people like his character, mostly because of how well he's portrayed by Anthony Starr, but saying that he's the hero? That's like saying that a lot of people think that the Joker's the hero. Nobody thinks that. He's also gone on record to say that Homelander's always been loosely based on Trump, and if that's the case, they did a really good job of writing him back then. Because when most people saw the show, they never saw Trump. They saw Homelander. And again, I feel the need to reiterate this one more time. You can write a show with political messaging, but nobody wants to feel like it's shoved in your face. Audiences are a lot more receptive to this kind of storytelling when it's actually good, and they can connect the dots themselves. If the show wants to make fun of a group of people, it can. But when it's done so poorly, is it any surprise that people aren't fans of it? Look, I still think this season of The Boys was pretty decent. I'm not in the group of people who absolutely hates it, but this was, in my opinion, the weakest season so far. I'm curious to know what you guys think though. Did you enjoy the new season of The Boys? Let me know in the comments below. And if you made it this far, make sure to go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe for more videos like this. With all that said, thanks for watching and stay winning.